I think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a joke everyone laughed at. But then the papers came. He actually filed for divorce because of one stupid comment. And I still don't understand how it went that far. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. We were at this trendy bar downtown, the kind of place with gold lighting and cocktails that cost more than dinner, and I remember thinking how good we looked together. Ethan in his crisp white shirt, me in a dress that turned heads. Everyone from my office was there, clients, co-workers, even my boss, and I wanted to show them I had the perfect husband. The steady one, the loyal one. I didn't expect him to sit there like a ghost while everyone else laughed and joked. When I teased him that night, I really didn't think I was doing anything wrong. It was just supposed to be funny. He'd barely spoken all evening, mostly sipping his drink while people swapped stories. I kept glancing at him, waiting for him to jump in, but nothing. So I started filling the silence, talking about us, about marriage, about how Ethan's the calm one. People laughed politely. It was harmless. Then someone asked about our friend group, like who was the most competitive, the most confident, the best at keeping secrets. I don't even remember who brought up that last part, but I do remember saying something that would change everything. I laughed and said, "Oh, Ethan's definitely the most modest. Trust me, he's got the shortest one in his group." It came out so easily, like a line rehearsed 100 times. Everyone laughed, loud and quick, the kind of laughter that makes you feel powerful. I smiled, proud of myself for breaking the tension. I didn't even look at him at first. When I finally did, his expression stopped me cold. He wasn't smiling. He was just sitting there, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the table, like he was trying not to exist. I tried to play it off, saying, "Relax, babe, I'm just kidding." But the laughter had already turned awkward. People looked away. Even Tessa, my best friend, was biting her lip like she wished she hadn't laughed. My boss cleared his throat. Someone changed the subject. I thought, fine, whatever, it's just a dumb joke. But Ethan didn't say another word. 10 minutes later, he excused himself, said something about needing air, but he didn't come back. At first, I assumed he was just being dramatic. He'd sulk, maybe ignore me for an hour, then get over it. That was his pattern. I stayed with my co-workers, pretending everything was fine, laughing too loud, drinking too much. But when I went outside, he wasn't there. I texted, "Where did you go?" Nothing. Another text. "Are you seriously mad?" Still nothing. When I got home later, he was in bed facing the wall. I slid under the blanket and whispered that people needed to learn to take a joke. He didn't answer. The silence made me angry. It wasn't like I'd cheated or screamed at him. I just said something everyone found funny. Men tease women all the time. We laugh it off. Why couldn't he? The next morning, he was up early, sitting at the kitchen table with his coffee. He looked calm but distant, like he'd practiced it. I tried to lighten the mood. "You're really not talking to me over that, are you?" he said quietly. "You humiliated me, Marielle." The way he said my name made me flinch. I told him he was being too sensitive, that it was just words. He shook his head. "You don't understand what you did." I wanted to scream, it was a joke, but his tone scared me. All day at work, I kept replaying the scene, the laughter, the pause, the way his eyes had gone dark. I told Tessa about it at lunch, expecting her to agree he overreacted. Instead, she said, "You might have crossed a line, babe. That's kind of personal." I stared at her. "Oh, come on, it's not like I gave details. Everyone jokes about that stuff." She shrugged. "Yeah, but not about their husband, in front of his wife's co-workers." That night, Ethan came home late. I tried to greet him like normal, asking how his day was, but he just nodded and went upstairs. I followed him, annoyed. "Are you really going to hold this against me?" He said, "You made me a punchline, Marielle. You think people at your office will forget that?" I told him nobody cared. He just looked at me and said, "You cared enough to say it." It wasn't the words that made me angry, it was his tone. Calm, measured like he was dissecting me. I slammed the door and said, "You're impossible. I was trying to make the night fun. You were sitting there like a corpse." He just said, "I didn't ask you to fix me." Then he went to the guest room. That was the first night he didn't sleep beside me. I told myself he'd cool off, that this was just his quiet punishment. I'd flash him a smile, act normal, and things would go back to how they were. But the next few days, he barely looked at me. He ate dinner in silence. No morning coffee together, no little text during the day. It felt like living with a stranger. By the end of the week, I was desperate enough to call my mum. I expected sympathy. Instead, she sighed and said, "Marielle, sometimes you don't know when to stop talking." That stung. "You're taking his side?" I asked. She said, "I'm not taking sides. I'm telling you to think about why you needed to say something like that in front of everyone." That night, I poured a glass of wine and watched the video someone had posted from the bar. You could hear my voice clearly. That laugh, the punchline, Ethan's face, frozen, humiliated. I deleted it immediately, but it was too late. Once something's out there, it doesn't go away. When he finally spoke to me again, it was 2 words. "We're done." I laughed, thinking he meant the fight, but then he said, "I mean it, Marielle. You made me a joke to people I have to see again. I can't live with someone who finds that funny." He walked out before I could respond. An hour later, I got a text. Just one line. "We need to talk about what you said." I stared at it, my heart thudding. It didn't sound angry. It sounded final. I told myself he was bluffing, trying to scare me into apologizing. I didn't know then that the next conversation wouldn't be about feelings at all. It would be about paperwork. He came home late again, that tight look still on his face, the one that made me feel like I was married to a ghost. I tried to act casual, sitting on the couch with a blanket and a half-finished glass of wine. "You're still mad about that?" I asked without looking up. He didn't answer, just hung his jacket on the same hook he always used, calm like he'd been rehearsing this silence. It was starting to annoy me. I told myself I wasn't going to chase him. If he wanted to be cold, fine. But when he walked straight upstairs without a word, something in me snapped. I followed him, standing at the bedroom door, like a mother scolding a child. "Ethan, we're not doing this. You can't just ignore me forever over one stupid joke." He turned around slowly. "One stupid joke? You said it in front of your co-workers, Marielle. You know what that means for me?" His voice wasn't raised, but it was sharp enough to cut through the room. I folded my arms. "It means you're being dramatic. Everyone knew I was joking." He stared at me for a long moment before saying, "You think words disappear when you laugh?" I rolled my eyes. "Please, nobody even remembers. You're the one keeping it alive." That was the problem with Ethan. He obsessed over things. I'd make a comment. He'd dissect it for days. I could feel him studying me, judging me, like I was some kind of stranger. "You embarrassed me," he said finally. "You made me feel small." I laughed softly, because what else could I do? "You're not small, Ethan. You're just sensitive." That word was the wrong one. His whole body stiffened. "Sensitive? You humiliated me in public, and now I'm too sensitive for not laughing along?" I wanted to leave the room, but I didn't. I wanted to win. "You could have said something. You could have defended yourself," I said. "Instead, you sulked. You made me look like the bad guy." He shook his head, quiet for a moment, then said, "You don't need help with that." That hit harder than I expected. I felt something in my throat twist. "Wow, thanks." He grabbed a pillow from the bed and walked toward the guest room. I followed him to the door. "So that's it. You're just going to sleep somewhere else now? Over a joke?" He didn't even look back. "It's not the joke, Marielle. It's what it showed me." When I woke up the next morning, his side of the bed was untouched. The coffee pot was still warm, but he was gone. I checked my phone. No messages. For a moment, I thought maybe he'd gone to work early. Then I saw the mail on the counter. Bills, coupons, and an envelope with handwriting I didn't recognize. It was addressed to him, from a law office downtown. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was nothing, probably something from his firm. But when he came home that night, I couldn't stop staring at it. He noticed. "You opened my mail?" he asked quietly. I said no, but the lie hung there. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, the space between us louder than any argument we'd ever had. I wanted to fix it, but I didn't want to apologize. Not first. "Can we just forget about it?" I said finally. "We're married, Ethan. People say dumb things sometimes." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes on the floor. "You didn't just say something dumb, you said something cruel." The word made me defensive immediately. "Cruel? I didn't mean it like that. You're twisting everything I say." "You meant it enough to laugh," he said. The worst part was that I couldn't even remember why I said it. It wasn't planned. It just came out. But hearing him call it cruel made me feel cornered, so I lashed out. "You know what? Maybe if you didn't act like a stranger all night, I wouldn't have needed to carry the conversation. You sat there like a statue. I had to do something to make people laugh." His jaw tightened. "You could have made them laugh without making me a punchline." I didn't respond. He stood up and said quietly, "You don't get it, and I don't think you ever will." Then he went upstairs, closing the door behind him with that careful, quiet finality that scared me more than yelling ever could. I called Tessa that night. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't the villain. She tried to at first. "He'll get over it," she said. "Men hate being embarrassed, but they always come around." I wanted to believe her. Then she added, "Still, maybe don't make those kinds of jokes again. You know, about that." I groaned. "You're acting like I revealed national secrets. It was nothing." But even as I said it, something in me knew she was lying to make me feel better. 3 days passed before Ethan said more than a few words to me. I started leaving little peace offerings, his favorite coffee, dinner waiting when he got home, a note that said, "I miss you." Nothing worked. He'd nod, thank me politely, then disappear into the guest room. Every small rejection felt like another door closing. On the 4th day, I overheard him on the phone. His voice was low, steady. "Yes, I'd like to schedule a consultation. Yes, financial separation for now." I froze behind the hallway wall. I didn't breathe until he hung up. Then I walked back to the kitchen and poured myself another glass of wine. That night, when he came downstairs, I pretended I hadn't heard. "You're being cold," I said, forcing a laugh. "You're supposed to be my partner, not my enemy." He stared at me like I was speaking a different language. "Do you even hear yourself?" he asked. "You talk like this is a game." "It's not a game," I said quickly. "It's just, I didn't think you'd take it this far." "Neither did I," he said, "but here we are." He went back upstairs, and I sat there replaying every word, trying to twist it into something less serious. A consultation didn't mean divorce. Maybe he was bluffing, trying to scare me into apologizing. Maybe he wanted to see me panic. But the next morning, I found his wedding ring on the counter beside his keys. I touched it, half expecting it to be warm. It was cold. By the time my mom called that evening, she already knew. He'd gone to see her. "He looked like someone who'd lost everything," she said. "He said he needs time to think." I felt this strange mix of anger and fear. "Why is everyone taking his side?" I snapped. "He's acting like I cheated on him." "You didn't cheat," she said softly, "but you betrayed him all the same." I hung up before she could say more. That night, I scrolled through my messages, rereading our old texts. Photos, jokes, plans for trips we never took. I wanted to send something, anything, to break the silence. Instead, I deleted our thread. If he wanted space, fine. I'd give it to him. He'd see how empty it felt without me. At midnight, I heard him come home. His footsteps stopped outside my door, paused for a moment, then kept going to the guest room. No words, no confrontation, just that quiet retreat. I lay there staring at the ceiling, telling myself I hadn't done anything that bad. People survive worse things than a joke. But when I closed my eyes, I saw that bar again. The laughter, the silence after, the look on his face. For the first time, it didn't seem funny at all. The following week at work felt like walking through fog. Everyone had seen the video. I told myself they were just imagining it, that nobody actually cared. But they did. I could feel it in the quiet smiles, the polite pauses in conversation when I walked into the break room. Even Colin, who used to flirt with me over coffee, barely looked up from his laptop. I tried to act unaffected, cheerful, confident, the same Marielle who made everyone laugh. But inside, I could feel something unraveling. By Thursday, our team dinner rolled around. It was supposed to be casual, just the usual end-of-quarter celebration. I told Ethan about it that morning, though I wasn't sure why anymore. We barely spoke except about bills or the dog. He said nothing, just nodded, so I took that as permission. I put on a black dress, something understated, and told myself I'd behave this time. No jokes, no teasing. I would show everyone that I wasn't some cruel wife, that I could still be classy. When I arrived, the restaurant was already crowded. Everyone was polite, friendly even, but distant, like they were talking to someone contagious. I ordered a drink, smiled too much, and tried to laugh like nothing was wrong. Then Colin leaned over from 2 seats away and said, almost kindly, "Hey, you okay? You've been quiet lately." I shrugged. "Just marriage stuff," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Still about that night?" I forced a smile. Apparently, he can't let go of one little joke. Colin didn't laugh. He said, "Marielle, you made it public. That kind of thing doesn't just fade." That annoyed me more than it should have. I turned the conversation away, started talking about our new client. But the discomfort stayed. When I got home, Ethan was in the living room watching TV with the sound low. I stood in the doorway and said, "I went to the team dinner. People were weird thanks to you." He didn't look up. "Because of me," I said, louder this time. "If you'd just laughed that night, none of this would have stuck." He turned off the TV and looked at me properly for the first time in days. "You really think this is about my reaction? You humiliated me, Marielle. Then you made it everyone's problem." I crossed my arms. "You're the one making it worse now, sulking like a child." "I'm setting boundaries," he said. "Something you clearly don't understand." I laughed out of habit, though it came out wrong, sharp, defensive. "Oh, come on, you're acting like I destroyed your life." He just said, "Maybe I'm finally realizing how small it was with you." And he walked away. That line stung more than I wanted to admit. I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, I poured myself another drink and went online. I posted a story, a meme, something stupid about men who can't take a joke. It was meant to be funny, light-hearted. I added a caption. "At least some of us can laugh about it." It got likes immediately. Little hearts, laughing emojis, even a few supportive comments from friends who didn't know the full story. It felt good for a few hours, like taking control back, until I saw Ethan's name pop up in the viewers list. He didn't say a word about it that night or the next morning, but I could feel something shift. He moved differently around the house, calm, methodical, deliberate, like he was preparing for something. I should have known. By Monday, the fallout started. HR called me into a meeting. My stomach dropped when I saw the email. Discussion of conduct during recent team events. I walked in trying to look confident, but they already had printouts, screenshots of the video, the meme, the comments. My boss said carefully, "Marielle, This kind of public joking can reflect poorly on the company and on you. I wanted to argue, but the words tangled in my throat. I said it was taken out of context. They said perception mattered more than intent. I left that meeting humiliated, my ears burning, my face hot with anger, not at myself, but at Ethan. When I got home that night, he was packing a small duffel bag. My heart dropped. "Where are you going?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "Somewhere else for a while." "What does that mean?" He zipped the bag. "It means I need distance." "From what?" I asked, though I already knew. "From you," he said simply. I stepped in front of him. "So you're running away because I made a joke? Are you hearing yourself?" He looked at me with something I couldn't read. Pity, maybe. "You still think this is about a joke. It's about respect, Marielle. You lost mine." I wanted to scream, to make him stay, to make him feel guilty for leaving. "You're pathetic," I said instead. "Most men would fight for their marriage." He paused in the doorway. "Maybe you should have fought for it too." Then he was gone. I called Tessa, sobbing, half angry, half drunk. She told me to calm down. "He'll come back once he cools off," she said, but her voice didn't sound sure. I scrolled through my social media again, reading the comments under my post. Some people were laughing, others were judging. I deleted it. Too late. Screenshots were already circulating. Someone from work had shared it on their story with a caption like, "Yikes, imagine being her husband." The next morning, my phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from co-workers, from my sister, even from my mum. "Take it down. Stop digging deeper." My mother called and said, "You need to fix this before you lose everything." I snapped, "I didn't do anything wrong." She said quietly, "You never think you do." That night, I came home to find Ethan's closet half empty. His shoes, his jackets, gone. Only the wedding photo on the wall remained, slightly tilted as if someone had bumped it while packing. I sat on the couch, waiting for him to come back. Hours passed, midnight, 1, 2. The house was silent except for the dog pacing near the door. When I finally went to bed, I saw a folded piece of paper on his pillow. It wasn't a note exactly, just a short line in his handwriting. "You'll hear from me soon." My heart dropped. I wanted to believe it meant reconciliation, but the words felt too formal, too final. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, telling myself he was bluffing, that this was another one of his silent punishments, his way of making me feel bad before crawling back. But even as I said it to myself, I knew it wasn't true this time. He wasn't angry anymore. He was calm, and that scared me more than anything. Calm meant done. Calm meant he'd stopped trying. And when Ethan stopped trying, he always followed through. I told myself I was fine without him. I said it out loud every morning like some affirmation. "I'm fine, he'll come around." But deep down, I knew things were falling apart faster than I could pretend. The house felt too quiet, the air too heavy. His shoes were still by the door, his books on the shelf, but everything about him was gone. He'd moved out 2 weeks earlier, saying it was temporary. I didn't believe him. When he packed that last box and loaded it into his car, I asked where he'd go. He said, "Somewhere peaceful." That was it. No details. No apology. Just peace. The one thing I'd apparently never given him. I threw myself into work to distract from the silence. The office was at least somewhere I could still be in control. Colin started stopping by my desk more often, bringing coffee, making me laugh. He was easy to talk to. Young, confident, that kind of attention that fills the space someone else left behind. When he told me I looked better than ever, I smiled too wide and said, "Guess single life suits me." I didn't mean it, but it felt good to hear someone say something nice after weeks of being treated like a criminal. It started small, lunches, long chats about life and relationships. I'd talk about Ethan, but only the parts that made me look good. I'd say things like, he just couldn't handle a woman with confidence, or he always took things too seriously. Colin would shake his head and say, "Some men don't know what they have." Those words hit me like medicine and poison all at once. I wanted to believe them, even though I knew they weren't true. When our team won a small marketing award, we all went out to celebrate. I wore a red dress I knew was a little too much for a work dinner. Colin sat next to me, close enough that our shoulders touched when we laughed. He kept refilling my glass. At one point, someone asked if I'd heard from Ethan. I shrugged and said, "He's probably busy crying over spreadsheets." The table laughed. Colin did too, but there was this flicker in his eyes like he wasn't sure whether to find it funny or cruel. I ignored it. Later that night, after most people had left, Colin offered to walk me to my car. It was cold and quiet outside, that kind of air that makes your words sound too loud. I told him Ethan had been calling my mother instead of me. He said softly, "That's strange." I said, "He wants to make me look bad." Colin hesitated before saying, "Or maybe he doesn't want to talk to you." The words stung more than I expected. I laughed it off, leaning against the car, pretending I didn't care. Then he said, "You don't need to prove anything to anyone." I wanted to believe him, so I nodded, but inside, something twisted. The next morning, gossip started spreading around the office. Someone had seen us outside together. Someone else said Colin was spending too much time at my desk. HR called me in for a chat, their polite way of saying people were talking. I told them it was harmless, just friendly. They didn't look convinced. I walked out furious, not at myself, but at Ethan. I told myself this was his fault for making me feel unwanted in the first place. That weekend, I texted Colin. "Want to grab a drink? Off the clock." He replied instantly. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" I wrote back, "I need a friend, not a lecture." When we met, he looked uneasy, like he'd already decided something. "Marielle," he said, "I don't want to get involved in whatever's happening between you and your husband." I laughed. "There is no between. He left." Colin looked at me for a long moment. "Maybe he left because he couldn't keep up with you." I smiled at that. Finally, someone who gets it. The truth is, I was trying to feel powerful again. Every message, every smile, every drink. It was a way to remind myself that I could still make someone want me, but it wasn't working. Colin stopped replying as quickly. He started avoiding me at work. The following week, I overheard him telling a coworker, "It's messy. I shouldn't have gotten close." My stomach dropped. Messy. That was his word for me now. When I got home that night, there was an envelope on the porch. My name in bold letters. No return address. Inside was a short note written in Ethan's precise handwriting. "You'll be hearing from me soon. Please check your email." My hands were shaking when I opened my inbox. There it was, an official notice of separation sent from his lawyer's office. Cold, clean, professional. I stared at it until the words blurred. The next day, everyone at work seemed to know. I don't even know how. Maybe someone saw the email open on my screen. Maybe Ethan had said something to someone. By lunchtime, I heard whispers that I was getting divorced, that my husband had evidence. I stormed into the parking lot and called him. He didn't answer. I left a message, my voice trembling between anger and panic. "You want to talk about evidence? Fine, let's talk like adults. Don't hide behind lawyers." That evening, I showed up at his office. He was in a meeting, but I waited. When he came out, his expression didn't change. He didn't look surprised to see me. He just said, "You shouldn't be here." I said, "You're really doing this, after everything we built?" He looked at me, calm and tired. "We didn't build anything, Marielle." "I did. You just performed." I told him he was rewriting history. I said he was trying to look like the victim. He said nothing. Then he reached into his briefcase and handed me a manila folder. "These are the forms. You'll want to read them carefully." I stared at it, refusing to touch it. "You're actually going through with this?" He nodded. You made a public mockery of me, then tried to fix it by finding a new audience. I'm done performing. I wanted to scream, to make him feel something, anything. Instead, I whispered, "You're punishing me because I hurt your ego." He said quietly, "No, I'm protecting what's left of mine." He walked away, leaving me standing there with the folder pressed against my chest like a shield. Inside were typed pages, signatures, and a stamped date. Separation, property division, legal phrases I couldn't bring myself to understand. I went home and poured another drink, telling myself it was just paperwork, that he'd cool off like he always did. But the words on those pages didn't sound like a threat this time. They sounded like the end. The morning the summons came, I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, thinking about coffee. I didn't even hear the knock at first. When I opened the door, a man in a dark jacket handed me a thick envelope and said my name like it was a sentence. "Mariel Linton?" I nodded and he said, "You've been served." That's what they say in movies, not in real life. But it happened. He walked away before I could ask anything. The papers were heavy, official, smelling faintly of ink and finality. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my name printed over and over again, next to words like petition, division of assets, and defamation of character. Defamation. I actually laughed when I saw that, like it was some kind of joke. "How could you defame your own husband?" I threw the envelope across the table and said out loud, "He's being ridiculous." But the laughter didn't sound right. It cracked halfway through. The whole house felt like it was holding its breath. I called him, of course, straight to voicemail. I sent a text, "You can't be serious. Call me now." Nothing. I sent another. "You're not doing this, Ethan. We can talk." Still nothing. I paced around the living room until I noticed something new on the counter. Another envelope, this one from my mother. She must have dropped it off while I was at work. Inside was a short note. "He came by yesterday. I told him you'd try to talk him out of it. He said, 'She'll understand once it's official.' I think he means it, Marielle. Stop pretending you don't." That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the word defamation again. It felt like an accusation I didn't know how to defend. The next morning, I called the law office listed on the papers. A woman answered with a tone that was too calm, too polite. "Harper and Kellerman," she said. I told her my name. There was a pause. Then she said, "One moment, please." A click, then another voice. "Mrs. Linton, this is Mr. Harper. I represent your husband." The voice was deep, steady, no hint of sympathy. "I'd like to discuss this in person if possible." We met 2 days later in his office downtown, all glass and silence. The receptionist didn't even look up when I walked in. Mr. Harper was older, silver hair, neat suit, the kind of man who'd never forget a comma. He gestured for me to sit. I tried to sound confident. "This is a misunderstanding," I said. He nodded like he'd heard that sentence 1,000 times. "Your husband doesn't believe so." He opened a folder, sliding a few printed pages toward me. "We have evidence documenting repeated public humiliation, recorded statements, and social media activity damaging to his reputation." I stared at the papers. There were screenshots, my joke at the bar, the meme I'd posted, comments from people laughing underneath it, my own words right there in black and white. "That was humor," I said quietly. "Dark humor maybe, but still humor." He didn't even blink. "Mrs. Linton, humor does not erase impact." I crossed my arms. "So he's suing me because I embarrassed him?" "He's not suing you," the lawyer said. "He's protecting himself, financially and professionally." That word professionally stung. I thought about how he'd stopped going to my work events, how he'd gone quiet in our shared friend circles. It hadn't been just personal. I'd ruined how people saw him. Mr. Harper continued. "He's requested partial custody of the dog, exclusive rights to the home, and documentation of your online activity removed or publicly retracted." I laughed again. sharp and small. "He's taking the dog now? Is that supposed to hurt me?" "It's not about hurting you," he said. "It's about closure." I wanted to throw something at him, or cry, or both. Instead, I said, "He's overreacting. You men love to make yourselves the victims. I didn't cheat. I didn't steal. I just made a joke." The lawyer didn't react. "Your husband isn't looking for revenge," he said. "He's looking for peace of mind. The documents are ready for signing when you're ready." I stood up, trembling. "Tell him I'm not signing anything." The lawyer nodded. "He expected you'd say that." When I got home, there was another message on my phone. From Ethan. No words, just a photo of our dog lying on his lap. The caption said, "She's fine. Please don't make this harder." My throat burned. I typed back, "You're not the victim here, Ethan. You're making me look crazy." Then I deleted it. The following week, my mother called again. "He's calm," she said softly. "Too calm. You might want to think about what you're doing before it's permanent." "Permanent?" I snapped. "He's the one who started this." She sighed. "No, Marielle. You started it. He's just finishing it the only way left." I spent that evening scrolling through old photos of us. Vacations, anniversaries, all those smiling faces that now felt staged. For the first time, I noticed something in them. He was always the one looking at me, and I was always looking at the camera. I shut my laptop. I didn't want to see that anymore. The next morning, I went back to the lawyer's office. I didn't plan it. I just needed to look at those papers again to see if it all still felt unreal. Mr. Harper was waiting. "Changed your mind?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just want to understand." He nodded. "Your husband provided additional documentation." He slid another folder across the desk. This one was thicker. Inside were screenshots of my texts with Tessa, with Colin. Conversations where I'd called Ethan pathetic, boring, and once small. I stared at them, unable to speak. "He went through my phone?" I asked finally. The lawyer's tone stayed neutral. "He obtained them through shared account access, nothing illegal." My ears rang. "So he's collecting receipts now? Is that what this is?" "Evidence," he corrected. "He's building a record." For the first time, I felt real fear. Not anger, not guilt, just fear. The realization that he wasn't bluffing anymore, that this wasn't some long game to make me crawl back. He was really doing it. "You tell him," I said, my voice cracking. "You tell him he's destroying me." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "He believes you destroyed yourself." When I got home, I saw another envelope taped to my door, a copy of the revised agreement. Attached was a short handwritten note in Ethan's handwriting. "No hate. Just ending this right." I sat on the floor, holding that note for a long time. The papers were still sealed, the ink still fresh, the decision already made. He hadn't yelled, hadn't sought revenge, hadn't even spoken cruelly. He'd just done everything the clean, quiet, lawful way. And somehow that hurt worse than any shouting ever could. The final envelope came on a Wednesday morning, slid under the door, like a secret I didn't want to read. I already knew what it was. I'd been waiting for it in that numb, stubborn way you wait for bad news you've earned. When I picked it up, I saw the same law office name printed in clean black letters. I didn't even open it right away. I made coffee, sat at the table, stared at the steam until it disappeared. The kitchen looked bare without his things. His mug, his keys, even the sound of his shoes, all gone. Only the quiet stayed. When I finally tore it open, the words didn't surprise me. Final decree of dissolution of marriage. Just like that. No emotion, no explanation, no space left for questions. My name, his name, a judge's signature, and a list of what no longer belonged to me. The house, the savings account, the dog. Every piece of the life I'd joked my way out of. I kept reading, hoping to find a sentence that sounded less final, but it was all clean, professional language. like our story had been formatted into bullet points. I called him again, knowing he wouldn't pick up. I left one last message anyway. "Ethan, it's me. I just got the papers. Can we talk, please?" I didn't mean for it to go this far. You know that. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. I waited for a call back that never came. By noon, my mother stopped by. She didn't knock. She just walked in, holding her purse tight against her chest. Her eyes scanned the empty counters, the half-packed boxes. "You got them?" she asked softly. I nodded. "He really went through with it." She didn't look surprised. She sat down across from me, folded her hands, and said, "He warned you, Marielle." I wanted to argue, to say he'd overreacted, but the words caught somewhere behind my teeth. "He could have talked to me," I said instead. "He could have tried." She sighed. "He did. You just didn't listen." I looked down at the papers spread across the table, black text blurring together. "I thought he'd cool off," I whispered. "He always did before." My mother reached for the envelope, read a few lines, then set it back down carefully. "He's not angry anymore. That's what makes this final." The house felt colder after she left. I wandered from room to room, touching things like they could still hold his shape. The dent in the couch cushion, the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. Every space looked the same, but felt emptied of meaning. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. My makeup was smudged, my hair undone, but what scared me most was how calm I looked. Like I'd been waiting for this version of myself to show up all along. That evening, I opened my laptop and saw the last email from the law office. Subject line, "Case closed." Attached was a confirmation receipt. Beneath it, a single line from Ethan's personal address. "Take care of yourself, Marielle." No anger, no explanation. Just that. I read it over and over, trying to find something hidden inside it. A hint that maybe he still cared, that maybe this was just his way of forcing me to grow up. But there was nothing. Just a final kindness that felt colder than hate. I thought about replying. I even typed, "I didn't mean it. I was just trying to make people laugh." But the words looked pathetic sitting there on the screen. I deleted them. What would it change now? Outside, the sun was setting, turning the sky that dull orange color he used to love photographing. I stood by the window, holding the decree in my hand, feeling its edges press into my skin. It didn't even feel real, more like a prop in a story that had already ended. I whispered to the empty room. I didn't think it would actually end. The dog barked faintly somewhere in the distance, probably at his new place. I imagined him sitting on that couch, calm, peaceful, free. Maybe he was relieved. Maybe he'd stopped replaying that night the way I still did. I looked back at the table one last time. The papers lay flat, the ink already dry. My mother's note sat beside them, her handwriting small but clear. "He finally believed you." I folded the decree, slid it back into the envelope, and said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.